Welcome to Season 2 of Frontline Fridays, brought to you by Ubic, the AI-powered platform that helps retail and hospitality leaders connect, train, and empower their teams. I'm your host, Ron Thurston, and this season, we're diving into what it really takes to lead on the front lines of retail and hospitality. Together, we'll explore the biggest shifts in frontline work and how smart leaders are navigating them to drive results where it matters most. Each episode, you'll hear from top executives, industry experts, and powerhouse operators who share practical tactics you can put to work immediately. Today's conversation is all about what happens when great people, great product, and great culture come together, and the constant work it takes to keep that momentum alive. My guest is Paul Griffin, a global retail leader with over 20 years of experience in fashion and luxury, credited with generating more than $3 billion in revenue, opening over 350 stores worldwide, and driving 10x e-commerce growth. Paul's career includes leading transformative growth as the global president of Good American, the president and CEO of SMCP North America, and the founding president of Ted Baker North America, where he built the brand's US and Canadian footprint from the ground up. But what makes Paul's story so powerful is that he started on the shop floor as a sales associate in London, Soho. His journey from the stockroom to the C-suite is a masterclass in how to build culture, empower teams, and scale success without losing your soul. In this conversation, we dig into the lessons that shaped him and what CEO energy really looks like when it's grounded in people, not ego. Well, Paul, welcome to Frontline Fridays. I'm very excited to have this conversation with you.
I'm super excited to be here, Ron. Thanks for inviting me. Looking forward to our conversation.
So you and I were introduced several years ago, and we had some Zoom calls. I think I was on the road for Retail in America tour. You were actually here in Miami as the president of Sandro and Maje. And as it turns out, now that I live in Miami, of course, we run into each other at an event. I'm here in the Miami Design District a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Paul Griffin, so nice to meet you in person.
It's a small world, but finally I got to meet you in person, and so happy that we reconnected.
Likewise. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show, because this is about the front line. Often people in your president title leadership roles don't come from stores, and you came from stores. That says a lot. I think this conversation is about your journey and your leadership among several really important brands. But I wanted to kind of just go back a minute and hear about you starting in London on the shop floor, and give us the inspiration of your early, I'll call it early accidental career, potentially into intentional senior leadership roles.
Thank you, Ron. Yeah, it's true. I would often say to teams and store managers, I appreciate the work that they do the most in my role, I think, because I've done their job. And so, the early part of my career, it's true, I started on the shop floor. I've been a salesperson, I've worked in the stockroom, I've been an assistant manager, a store manager. And so I understand how hard it is to deliver these results that we expect all the time, and to do it consistently, from, 10:30 on a Tuesday morning to 6:30 on a Friday evening and everything in between. It's really, really hard work, and the expectations have just got higher and higher. So my journey started in Soho in London with a brand called Ted Baker, and I, was fortunate enough to be part of this really rapidly growing brand in those days in the UK. And then eventually, after being part of a small team where we built out this incredible business in the UK, I had the opportunity to go and launch the brand in the US. And following that with Canada as well. And that's how I landed here 20 plus years ago. So it's been an incredible journey. It's been really a growth story, retail growth story. I've been very fortunate to work and lead some incredible brands. Yeah, that's what's brought me to this point with you today, Ron.
Amazing. And when did it turn really, and when did your mind shift to say, you know what? I love this business. I'm going to stay in it. You made a huge personal decision to come to the US and launch a brand that I'm imagining those years. And I wore a lot of Ted Baker back in the day myself. I wear a lot of black because people know today, but I did actually used to wear stripes and florals if
I want to see those pictures of you wearing brightly colored prints and stripes.
Them all. When was that moment for you when you said this is my chosen career?
It happened quite quickly, actually. It's true that I think at the beginning I did feel it was a little bit of an accidental career, but very quickly I felt like this was my place. This was my home. This was going to be good for me. And it certainly happened before I up sticks and crossed the pond. So it would have been in the years between joining Ted Baker and then coming to the US. I came over in 2002. I got the bug, I guess you could say. I felt like I was growing and my growth was being supported. And so it was a great environment to be in, very entrepreneurial, very scrappy, no real playbook. We were writing the book that people would read later on, many years later. It was fun and exciting, and it was just full of growth.
And it was a different time in the history of commerce because it was 100% stores, either company owned, franchise, or wholesale. You didn't have e-commerce, and so the store was life.
Yeah, it really was.
Until not that long ago, to be honest. If we talk about history of commerce, it's been about the store for 100+ years.
Yeah, 100%. And so it was very entrepreneurial by nature, very creative. We invested a lot into the store environment. We were very focused on window displays and being super creative. And, we used to use a lot of humor back in those days, British ironic humor, but we spent a lot of time putting a lot of energy and creativity into everything that you experienced in the store, from selling ceremony, design and construction of the stores and the window displays and all the marketing that went wrapped around that. That was our marketing campaign. You didn't have social media. You didn't have e-commerce in those early years. And so I would say there was no other real way you could test and learn with your business. You had to make some seriously strong bets, opening shops or shop in shops, as it was back in those days. The way to test and learn was to turn up in a new market or indeed a new country with shops. And so there was
bets.
Yeah, expensive. And so, you had to have real conviction in the plan and the strategy. And then the execution had to be impeccable. And then how you were reaching customers in this way, opening shops in different markets. And then you were relying on word of mouth. And so you better be sure that the experience in the stores was first class.
That's really interesting you say that, because you're right. We are so immersed in Google ads and Instagram stories and everything that is around brand promotion today. That is, I hadn't actually put thought around that, but you're right. This idea of being a promoter of the brand was the store experience responsibility. That's how you grew.
And the responsibility of the team. So, we talk about store teams being ambassadors of the brand. I mean, it was on another level back in those days. You had no other way to spread the word. Yes, you could advertise in magazines, remember those? But that was expensive. And so we preferred to invest in the stores and the windows and the experience, and led by the teams.
And if we fast forward to today, in your most recent roles, as president of Sandro and Maje and of Good American, really important high growth brands similarly. So what's, as your leadership has evolved over the years, what's the same and what has changed because the business has changed?
All brands have become a lot more sophisticated. The technology, the tools, the way we reach customers through social media, your own digital platforms, digital marketplace. So much has changed and it's become way more efficient, and the scale is huge and the speed to market is faster. But fundamentally, the business hasn't changed. The business is still powered by people and driven by customers. And so at the core of this, what I recognized really early on and still prioritize today is you got to take care of your team. They're the ones taking care of the customer, and you better be sure you're listening to your customer and reacting with pace and urgency to give them what they want, when they want, and where they want it. But at the end of the day, the fundamentals are very similar, if not the same. The way we do it is just way more sophisticated, and everything is moving at such a rapid pace compared to those early years in my career.
And it's interesting when you describe that, because at its peak, Ted Baker was, I don't know, what was the peak store count?
And shopping shops.
And so how do you do that at scale? How do you create culture? And I love what you say of like, it is about being in service to the stores. It's being in service to the teams that are standing in front of the customer. How did you do that at scale across 100 stores, multi-store leadership roles, an entire U.S. team? What was your strategy around that?
I think you got to focus on the team. I think you got to focus on your recruitment strategy and your internal development programs to ensure you're developing people that understand, respect, and own their role that they play within this culture. Because it takes an entire team to cultivate this. This is not the work of one or a few people. When this really works, it's everybody playing a part. And so you've got to find the right people, cultivate this culture over time, and protect it fiercely, because it can unravel very quickly if you don't continue to prioritize it. And so you develop a lot of initiatives to help support that and recognize the people that are really helping develop it and shape it as you grow and as they grow. So it becomes organic and it evolves over time. But when it's working well, you can achieve tremendous results. A team with a strong culture, a culture of collaboration and team spirit can overcome the biggest challenges and deliver the most incredible results way above expectation. That's what a great culture is all about. I think, if I look back to the early years, we were doing that before people really ever talking about culture. And it's something that I've taken through my entire career, and I've always made it a key priority. But it's a team effort.
Absolutely a team effort. Otherwise, you can't accomplish it again at scale. You could do a lot of it yourself from the top, but it requires an entire organization to believe in the mission and to celebrate when it shows up, recognize it when it doesn't. How to develop culture that also evolves over time. I agree with you. I think it's a word, became kind of a hype word for a long time, hard to define. But when you could feel it, when you knew that it was present and that it was working, I think it's also calling it out of like, this is what we stand for. This is what maps right now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You got to call it out when it's working well. You also got to call it out when it's not working well. When I say protect it fiercely, you have to have a kind of a zero tolerance approach to this, where if you see behaviors that are not aligning well with the culture and the values of your organization, that needs to be dealt with a matter of urgency, because problems never go away. They just actually get worse. So you better tackle these things head on in the moment.
Agreed.
But ultimately, when it works well, there are so many great positives that come from this. I think one of them would be something that we're all trying to improve. It's the rate of retention. When people feel part of a mission and part of this positive culture, that trumps everything. That really is what binds a team together. And that you see incredible rates of retention. People feel part of something bigger than just a job. And that's when the magic really happens.
I would say the magic and the results.
Well, it comes hand in hand, because I think people that start to work with me might have, first impressions. He's focused on results. He's tough on results. Really, I'm focused on, and as they get to know me, they realize that's actually it's not totally accurate. It's about people. It's about team, culture, organization, tools, employee experience. When you get all of those factors right, you're building a foundation that will then deliver the results. So it's intrinsically linked to results. But the first part of this is people, and people drive our business. People take care of our customers, whether it's in retail stores, whether it's in the digital space. Behind everything is people and a team and a culture and an organization. That's where you've got to focus your attention on first as a leader.
It's part of retail pride. It is.
Yeah.
It's like the pride delivers. It's similarly, I think people would describe me often as being kind of culture, motivation, people, but I never didn't deliver on the results. And it's because of the same, like you're building an emotion around culture, but the emotions, you're also building accountability. And you're saying, well, I want to be part of this. I want to deliver great results. I'm engaged in your journey here. Naturally, in our business, results are an output of all that human work. And I think you're right. Some brands over time have had the reputation of deliver or die. Like you're only as good as the sales flash. And I think it's so much deeper than that. It sounds like you had a similar approach of like, let's look at the entire ecosystem of people before we just try to analyze the sales flash too deeply.
Yeah, it's 100% where you've got to start. And if you invest the right amount of time, the dollars, you then build a strong foundation for growth and sustainable growth and results. It's hard to really do the growth part and the results part with a weak foundation. You can run and deliver results for a period of time, but eventually it doesn't become sustainable. And that's why you need a strong foundation built on your team.
And your career has been with brands that are very high touch service. You've not led big mass market self-checkout businesses. You've been a man that's been dedicated to the customer experience. Yeah, that's even, in my opinion, having also done that, it's even harder because the emotion connected to high touch service requires a different leadership from the top. I don't know if you would agree with that.
Yeah, I think so, Ron. I think it's, if you look in my career, I've really played in this accessible luxury space, where the brand image, the store environment, the products and the service that goes along with it is very much inspired by the luxury space in the industry, but at a more accessible price point. Okay, that makes sense. So, but the customer still expects a much more elevated level of service, whether that's just in-store service, whether that's after-sales service, whether that's clienteling, CRM, whatever it may be. All this steps along that customer journey is definitely taking inspiration from the luxury world. And so you just got to do it very, very quickly. And in the accessible luxury space, your price points are much lower. So you need to sell a lot of units. So you've got to deliver this whole luxury experience, but with rapid pace and urgency, and build teams that understand that is definitely is quite unique in the industry, because I think it requires managers and teams that understand that luxury world, but also can move at the pace of maybe more mass market brands. And that's not easy. It's definitely a tricky balancing act.
Very much so. And you layer on that it was all apparel. It's not an accessory business. So then apparel is a higher return rate, and could be dozens of things in the fitting room, and it takes more time to close the sale. We're not trying to describe something that's impossible here, but I think it's recognizing the complexities of what you've done and the success that you've had.
And that's why I would always say to store managers and sales teams on store visits or in conferences or in town halls, I understand how difficult it is to achieve these incredible results. It's not easy. It requires leaders throughout the teams to deliver this type of service and to be able to juggle all the balls at the same time. The expectations that a store has today compared to where it was a few years ago is just incredible. You know, all the requests that come in from headquarters, departments, on top of the expectations to deliver the results. It requires a very, very incredibly talented team to be able to repeat that day after day.
And I've heard you mention this idea of like being very intentional about choosing who you work for, not just a brand, but who you work for and why that's, I would absolutely agree with you, but where did that become so important to you?
We made some pretty big decisions in our life, right? One of them is where we actually work. Others will be in your personal life. You may decide who you want to marry. You may decide you want to move and buy a house. Whatever. There are some pretty major things that we do in our lives. One of them is where we work. And so I will always say to actually people that I interview, don't just take my word for it, why this company may be so amazing and a great place for you to come and join and participate in this incredible growth story, but do your own homework. The tools that we have at our disposal make it even easier. But, you know, make sure that you're joining a team that you align with their mission and their values. You can do research on the direction of the company, the leadership, the financial health. You can do all of that. Do your homework and make sure that whenever you join a company and a leader, and you're going to work for a leader, make sure that you really do align with this organization and this leadership team, because when that all clicks together, it's just it can be an amazing career story on your journey. And I've been fortunate enough to have had those experiences several times, and it's incredible when it all clicks like that.
I love the idea that you're describing of transparency in the interview, of also saying, well, tell me what you've learned, and then let me give you even a few more resources to go deeper. Here are some names and contact information of people on my team. I used to do this. Like, get in contact with them. Don't take my word for it. Actually, ask the people that currently work here if this is a place that they would recommend you to work before you make this decision, because I absolutely support that. You going with your gut and not doing enough homework often doesn't end well.
Well, I think you've got to do both. You know, I would always say trust your gut, but also do your homework, do your research. And when it feels good on both levels, you probably, hit the sweet spot. I think I've been fortunate to have got it right a number of times, but also, help support people along their own career journeys and career paths as well. And what's been wonderful over a fairly long career now is seeing people join teams that I've led and start to give other people the same opportunities as well. And to be looking back on this career now, having helped support so many, talented people on their own journeys. And I'm sure you have the same experience, Ron, where you can look across the industry and say, yeah, I played a part in helping these incredibly talented people along their journey and their career path. And, that's certainly one thing that I take a lot of pride with, is having played a little role in so many careers, some very successful careers within the industry.
I share that sentiment with you. That's a very powerful reflection. It's not the brand, it's the people that you've been able to positively impact or make decisions for, or see something in them that they maybe didn't even see in themselves. One, I think the greatest joys of this industry is there's no price of entry. It takes other people to say, well, you know what, Paul, like, you're really good at that. Like, I'm going to give you the chance. And you may say, oh, You think so? I'm not really sure that I am. And sometimes that's a leader's responsibility to call it out and bring it forward and celebrate. And then you watch them grow. And then you and I can sit here and say, aren't we proud of that? But I'm really proud of people.
Yeah, and it's great to see them giving then others the same opportunities as well, and seeing the growth of so many people is so pleasing and something I'm super proud of.
As we wrap up, I like to just ask this kind of advice question often is, what advice would you give to those listening about building this idea of culture and building a culture that thrives on excellence for people? What advice have you given or would you say today?
Well, look, I'm certainly not an advocate of managing by committee. So let's make that part very clear, because ultimately leaders have to make the big decisions and make those tough calls at times. But I think the key to this is involving more people than less people along that journey and along the path of overcoming periods of growth and challenges and opportunities. I think it's important to trust your experts, okay, and give them the opportunity to shape and own this culture, this environment that we're trying to cultivate. When you empower a team, and empowered teams don't wait for direction. They take charge and they lead the way. And that's when it really starts to come together in such a powerful way. And so I think, yes, you need to involve people. You need to listen to people. You need to empower people. And when you do that, you can achieve incredible results driven by this positive culture.
Absolutely agree with you. Those are not just words, but those are actual demonstratable deliverables that when in practice deliver the results that everyone wants and needs today.
Yeah.
I believe that. Thank you so much. I know you're now advising brands and thinking about the future of this business. And so tell me how people can find you.
Yeah, well, I'm pleased to let you know and the audience know that I've formed a strategic advisory firm called Griffin Strategic Partners. And, what I see this as is a platform to help founders, leadership teams, investors achieve and realize their ambitions, their next chapters of growth. And so, led by me, but also tapping into my vast network within the industry. So bringing in other experts and leaders in the industry. So what I want to do with this is really tap into my 20 plus years of experience and also unlock the incredible talents within my network as well. And so that's what I see the next chapter looking like for me. And I'm very excited to finally start to share my experience with more brands, more founders, more leadership teams as we move forward.
Great. And LinkedIn is the best place to contact you?
Yeah, LinkedIn's the best place to get in touch. And I'm looking forward to connecting with the audience.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Paul. I'm really excited that you just moved back here to Miami. I'm here now. So, we're in the same city. We can hang out. And I was forward to definitely and see the success and the brand's lucky enough to have your very sound advice. So
thanks,
you
Ron.
again. It was a pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks, Ron, for involving me today. It's been an enjoyable experience and we'll speak soon.
Great. Thank you. Today, Paul reminds us that great culture isn't something you declare. It's something you protect. It's built by finding the right people, empowering them to lead, and calling out both the wins and the misalignments along the way. The through line in everything Paul says is simple. When you take care of your team, they take care of the customer, and the results take care of themselves. For everyone listening, here's your challenge for the week. Take a closer look at your team and ask yourself, do they know what we're building? Do they believe in it? And do they feel supported to make it happen? Because when your team feels ownership, clarity, and belief, that's when culture stops being a buzzword and starts becoming your superpower. Thanks for tuning in, and a special thanks to Ubik, the presenter of Frontline Fridays. Ubik is the AI-powered platform that helps retail and hospitality leaders connect, train, and empower their teams. Ready to make your frontline your competitive advantage? Visit Ubik.com. That's YOOBIC.com to learn more. Until next time, keep leading boldly and keep building cultures worth belonging to.